Warning, this video is going to be horrendous for you if you're affected by flickering and flashing lights, so please avoid it.
Hello there, I'm Gav. You may have noticed, based on some of my previous videos, that I'm slightly obsessed with how different displays work and all the different methods they use to get a complete image into our eyeballs. We've looked at LCD, we've looked at OLED, we've looked at plasma, we've looked at 3D, we took a look at the Nintendo Zapper, the light gun, and all of these different methods of displaying an image are based on the same thing, and that is our persistence of vision. This is the Nintendo Virtual Boy, a very early attempt at 3D gaming, VR style. One thing that I didn't appreciate by looking at pictures of it or videos is how big it is. Like, it is an absolute unit of a headset. And I guess that's why it's not really a headset. You never wore this on your head. It was used with this little table stand, or I guess you could put it on the floor and then sort of go prone into it. And then you would have the controller just play it like this.
Firstly, to show off this amazing piece of kit from 1995, I'm going to use this funny looking Nintendo screwdriver to take off the bottom of the Virtual Boy. Move the speakers out of the way so we have access to the sides, and also take off these red plastic lenses that don't make the game red, but they block your ability to see some of the green circuit boards inside. This little chip right here is one of the displays. There's one on each side for each eye, and they're pointed at each other, sort of inwards to the middle. But the light from each display goes through a lens, this bulgy thing here in the middle, and that magnifies the image. And after that, it bounces off this mirror that's kind of at 45 degrees and bounces the magnified image into your eyeball. You might be imagining this display as a tiny screen, looks like a miniaturized TV that you might find in a headset that you've seen, like a Quest or an Index or a Vision Pro. But the displays in this Virtual Boy are very different. Orientated correctly like this in a vertical manner, they have a resolution of 1 by 224. The entire display is a single column of 224 red LEDs. Outside of the headset, when powered on, they look like this. However, when you're looking through the eyepiece, you get an incredible image that's actually 384 by 224. To see how this is achieved, we'll do my favorite thing and go really close and really slow. The entire height of the 224 red LEDs is about 1 centimeter, so we're incredibly close here. In real time, the display looks pretty stationary, but as we increase to 100 frames a second, it's starting to flicker, and now we'll boost the frame rate to 80,000 frames a second. Watch what happens here. The Virtual Boy just completed an entire frame for one eye, and you may be thinking, that didn't look like anything. Even persistence of vision, I would just end up with this. But with persistence of vision in mind, let's watch it again and imagine the display is moving from left to right. If you've watched my video on how a CRT TV works, it's an extremely similar concept. If you can see in slow-mo, one of your eyes would have just witnessed this. Persistence of vision needs an incredibly fast scattering of light across your eye, and slow-mo actually removes that completely. So now I'm going to overlay 2 shots together so you can effectively see everything that just happened in slow-mo, as well as the persistence of vision you would have in real time. It does this 50 times per second per eye. You can mimic that movement on a perfectly stationary display just by whipping a camera back and forth. You can see here that as I slow this down, you get to see individual frames of the pinball game. However, without the magnifying lenses, it's incredibly small. Here's the shot of the sliding display making the Virtual Boy logo with the full logo overlaid the whole time. But I am just sliding this footage in the editor. I'm not actually seeing the display move left and right. And it doesn't move at all inside the headset. The part that does all the moving is in fact the mirrors. Each one vibrates perfectly in sync with the refresh rate of its display 50 times per second. You can see here that the mirrors are slightly out of sync from each other, and I'm not sure if it's because of the processing power of the Virtual Boy, but it actually does one eye at a time. So while one display is drawing each line of each frame, the other display is sat dark. And in that time, the mirror of the dark eye is resetting back to its original position.
What is quite interesting is that similar to a TV, it starts the frame at one end and finishes at the other end and then resets to do it from the same direction every time, as opposed to go from one end to the other and then hit the next frame on the way back. Every frame starts from the left and ends on the right.
This is interesting to me because although both eyes are drawn left to right, the mirrors are actually angled in opposite directions. That means a frame is only drawn on clockwise movement. So left, right, left, right, left, right, and so on. Red LEDs were used in this because I believed for a full color display you would need the inclusion of a blue LED, and that was just not possible in a device of this size in 1995. As with most 3D content, the 3D effect is achieved by showing the same moment in time to both eyes, but showing each eye a slightly different perspective of the same moment. And in real time, your brain isn't fast enough to realize it's not actually seeing through both eyes at the same time. Before, when we were looking at the display not through the mirrors, we were just looking at the Virtual Boy logo, but this is what it looks like in slow-mo as it's drawing out a complete frame, column by column, of the actual pinball game itself. It looks very smooth and fluid, but it's actually not. If we go even slower, 450,000 frames a second, back to the old Virtual Boy logo that we know and love, you'll see that even though there are continuous horizontal lines on what it's drawing, it never leaves any pixel turned on between columns of the frame. Every pixel turns off between each row. So that's 384 individual flashes of this LED strip per frame, of which there are 50 in a second. That gives us 19,200 flashes a second, and then we're multiplying that by 2 because there's a whole other eye. That's 38,400 individual flashes across 2 displays per second. But what if I told you there were actually even more than that? Right now I've got my 10 times magnification microscope lens on the front of the Phantom, which is turned on its side to make the most of the resolution of the sensor, and it's so immensely zoomed in that to focus the camera I'm just pushing slightly on the tripod with my finger to bring it in and out of focus. We're now incredibly close, and you may be able to notice here that at 1,000 frames a second there's varying amounts of brightness across the LED strip, and that makes total sense for showing 3D objects in a game. You need contrast to show different edges, like the underside of the flippers are slightly darker than the top. At lower frame rates like this, it's much easier to see, but when we were up at the, in hundreds of thousands of frames a second, every pixel looked the same brightness to me. So to figure out what's actually happening here, I'm going to reduce the vertical resolution of the camera to 64 pixels, and that'll get us to a lovely 875,000 frames a second. And here, you can see it. There's a distinct gap between each line of the image, but each line has multiple phases where different areas of the LED turn on or off. This is happening so fast that it's effectively beating the speed of the mirror. We're now at 1.75 million frames a second on the display of the Virtual Boy. I've determined that each column of each frame actually has 3 distinct stages of litness. 1, 2, 3, off. 1, 2, 3, off. So areas that stay lit between those 3 phases will show up brighter because it's effectively just stacking brightness by being lit longer. And I think that if you include the off state, there are 4 different levels of brightness that a pixel can be on this display. Let me tell you, when I started filming this video, I didn't expect I would have to take the Phantom so fast to see something. But you often never know until you start filming. And I think we were seeing this effect in the 450,000 frames a second clip in the area just under the Virtual Boy box, which is in shadow. And you can see that the dots under there aren't lit as long as the dots out of shadow. But once again, this is happening so fast that it doesn't cause the brighter areas to appear wider to your eye. I've got to say, I do find this tech really impressive, especially for its time. Because the game is basically being fired directly into your eyeballs, and there's no backlight like an OLED, it actually looks like a very crisp, pretty high-res image when you're playing it. And I just love that marriage of incredibly precise electronics and also the mechanical element. And the way the image whips across your eyes with the mirror is something we've actually done in reverse on this channel, where we used it to film a very fast-moving subject instead of display one. Overall, it's sad it failed. It's a very interesting piece of kit, and they do now command the price of something quite rare, so I think my best option now is just to get more games for it. Speaking of cool displays, at the end of 2025, I took a high-speed camera to somewhere I've always wanted to take it, the middle of Times Square. As you may know, due to the grid being alternating current, most lights that we're looking at with our eyes are actually turning on and off extremely quickly. There's so many types of different advertising screens and billboards from different decades. I thought it was fascinating to see what they're all actually doing in slow-mo. Almost everything is flashing on and off with different panels flickering at different times. The corner of this building was actually entirely turning off for a fraction of a second. This one up here looked normal to the eye, but in slow-mo, none of the panels were on at the same time. They were kind of working in shifts. And we were also able to see this absolute madness. To commemorate the launch of our Patreon in the previous video, Patreon very kindly put us up on a billboard in Times Square, which was very surreal to be filming a billboard that's showing slow motion footage that I've filmed in slow-mo. Way too meta. Thank you so much to everyone who's already signed up, especially those whose names you see on the screen now. If you would like to see what it's all about, feel free to go to the address on that billboard over there. Patreon.com/theslowmoguys. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video.